Well, hello my beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel if you're returning, and if you are new, welcome to you as well. This is Christine, your DIY craftaholic. I hope you are all having a fabulous day. In this video, I have put together 20 fall DIYs for you to enjoy. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So let's start with DIY number 1. This is one of those shore living board, and I cut off the piece with the seahorse and I painted it with 2 coats of this oops paint. I got this sign from Dollar Tree. So here I'm removing the sticker and I'm placing it on the board. And here I'm just taking a piece of jute twine and pinning that around the top 3 times, just crossing them to give me an X shape. And then I just took the lighter and burn off the fuzzes. And this fall floral is from Dollar Tree, and this one is called Hop Bush. And here I'm just selecting 2 buds, cutting those off. I remove the leaves just to have them lying flat. And then I glue them down one on top of the other, but slightly slanting them so I don't have them directly on top of each other. Now when you're cutting your stems or your buds off, make sure not to cut too far down or you're going to just mess up the flowers itself. That little piece in the middle that holds them together, you want to make sure that that is still intact. And then I just took a piece of jute cord and make like a swag with both pieces. And glue them on top of the leaves. Now this ribbon I got from Joann's. And I'm just making a little shoelace bow. Well, actually, I could not make a shoelace bow with this because it was too stiff. So I had to cut off the piece that I needed, glue the ends together, and then like scrunch up in the middle, tie it down with a piece of jute cord, and then I made the tails separately. For the tails, I just cut off a long enough piece and then kind of fold in the middle just a little bit so that they slant, the ends slanted, and then glued it down with some hot glue and then dovetail the ends. I took one of my jute and just glued that on top for further embellishment, and then glued it on top of the floral piece. And this is done. Now I needed something to hang it, so I made a little hanger at the back. So make sure that your hanger that you're adding is wide enough, just like you see me doing here. And to keep the ends intact, I just took a piece of straw hat that I had and just cut that in 2 and glued it on both ends. And I didn't want too much of it showing at the top when it's hanging, and that's another reason why you have to stretch. Make sure you're stretching it far enough. And my sign is complete. Let me know what you think. Now for DIY number 2, this is a rope from Dollar Tree and this wreath form that I got from Woodpecker's Craft. And again, I painted one side with some of the oops paint. And when that dried, I glued the rope and then I wrapped it around all the way and glued down the end. These are fall leaf scatters, and I am just going around the empty part of the wood, just putting them down sporadically, not in any really shape or form. And I went all the way around until I was done. And this Hello Fall came from a pack from Dollar Tree. I painted that with some Waverly moss, and then when it dried, I applied some Mod Podge. And then I thought it needed to be a little more popping on top of the leaves, so I just distressed it with some ink. And then I am taking some ribbon, again from Dollar Tree, from my stash, and I'm making a little bow, and this ribbon is wired. So here my bow is all made, and to give me a little hanger, I'm using this rope from Temu. I just wrapped it around the top, glue down the ends at the back, and that gave me my hanger. So if you are new to my channel or coming over from the playlist, welcome. I'm so happy you joined me today. Here on my channel, I do DIYs on a budget, dupes, look for less, and thrift flips. If you love budget-friendly DIYs like these and you have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing and be sure to hit that notification bell. Hit it again and select all so YouTube notifies you whenever I upload new videos. Now to get my bow onto my forced it under the jute cord and then kind of lined it up in the middle and then glued it down. And then to keep the ends, the tails from flapping around, I glue down one end on either side. And that's it for this one. Let me know what you think. This is the house sign from the Dollar Tree, and I painted it with my Oops paint, gave it one coat and distressed it a little bit. I'm going to use this napkin middle part with the pumpkin and the leaves and the word grateful. I thought I'd leave that there as well. And I used my finger to give me like a guide as to where I needed to put the napkin down. So I took the Mod Podge and I'm doing it in sections. And I'm spreading it thinly because I didn't want to dry it with the heat gun. And as I am placing the napkin down, I'm making sure that the edge of the napkin is lined up with the edge of the board. And then I just used my finger to smooth it out. And once I got that smoothed out, I then flipped it around and started working from the other end. And once I got that on, I took the parchment paper and the heat press. And just in case you're seeing this technique for the first time, what the heat does is reactivate the Mod Podge and gives it a secure hold. I then took the sanding block and sanded off the excess. And then of course you always want to ensure that you apply some Mod Podge to the surface of the napkin to protect it. And then I use the heat gun to dry it. And then to give the house a roof, I took 2 jumbo craft sticks and I just lined them up according to how the shape of the roof was and just made a mark in the middle as to where I needed to cut, and then flipped the house on top of the board and then traced out the little roof tip, and then I cut both of them out. I then sanded them down with the sanding block, both pieces, and then gave them 2 coats of Folk Art Elephant Grey. I took the wood glue and hot glue and glued those on. And then I took 2 of the maple leaves, and here I'm gluing them at the top to hide that little space right there. And then took a jute bow and glued that right in the middle. I added a piece of jute at the back for hanging. And this is done. Let me know what you think, guys. This is a wooden crate and a fox leather from Dollar Tree. The inspiration has pumpkin, but I chose to use the maple leaf. I then gave the crate 1 coat of Waverly chalk paint in plaster. And after it dried, I took a black fine tip Sharpie and I wrote the words, "Give thanks." I then outlined it with stitch lines using the marker. And as I looked at it, I realized that the word "give" wasn't quite centered, so I added a little acorn to the corner. And used some Eileen's tacky glue to glue the leaf on. I made a small jute bow and glued that on. I'm using the wooden box from Dollar Tree, and this one is very easy. All I will be doing is adding a piece of flour foam already glued onto a piece of cardboard, and I glue that in the box. Of course, ideally it would be better to use a battery powered candle or one that is higher, like you'll see me use in the end. I added some fall picks that I had in my stash. You can easily switch this out for your everyday decor or another season. And then I cut a small piece of wallpaper, slid that into the little slot at the front of the box, and then I added the candle, and this is done. I'm using an empty soup can, and then I just gave it a coat of Mod Podge and allowed it to dry, then painted it with 1 coat of Waverly black chalk paint in ink. Because this is chalk paint on metal, to prevent any abrasion with the brush or the sponge and the liquid Mod Podge, I used my Plaid Mod Podge Pearlized spray. And always make sure to use any form of spray in a well-ventilated area. And I got this buffalo check pumpkin pick that has on a rusty bell and a pine cone from Hobby Lobby last year for $1.99 on clearance. And then I just added some maple leaf, lamb's ear, and some wildflowers that I also had. Stuck those in there, fluffed it up and arranged them somewhat. Now, as per the inspiration, I'm done, but I went a little bit further and added embellishment with a sticker from this pack from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm done. This wooden house, so I removed the tag with some heat. I then traced and cut out the house on a piece of wallpaper from Dollar Tree. I painted this wooden pumpkin with a coat of Waverly chalk paint. And now for some embellishments. Now, if you would like to connect with me outside of YouTube, I'm on Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. And if you would like to help support my channel, I'm on Buy Me a Coffee as well. All those links can be found in my Linktree address, which is also in my description box below. So to give the pumpkin a little dimension, I use this rose gold marker to add some stitch lines around the edge. And then to seal the picture and the words in, I went over it with some Mod Podge. And then to give the pumpkin something to sit on, I glued in a tumbling tower block in the middle and then glued the pumpkin on top of that. I had some mixed paint left over from another project, which was the same shade as the pumpkins, so I decided to paint the outside of the house with 1 coat of that paint. And to add a touch of fall, I added 2 small pumpkins at either corner, and this is done. These are the items I started out using. I thought that I would just make the stuffing mostly with newspaper and a little polyfill on the outside to just cushion the paper, just crumpling the paper into a little ball, little larger than my fist. And then I opened the fabric and then cut off a large square. Here I'm using my heat gun to remove the wrinkles. This is a short-handed way of removing the wrinkles. If you have an iron nearby, you can certainly do that. I didn't. So I added some more polyfill and went at it again. And it was now a little bit easier to handle. So I picked up the corners again and pleated the middle until I was holding it around the neck, and then use a cord to just tie everything to hold it in place. That I just wrapped the cord around the pumpkin to form pegs. And then I met back at the top, tied it, and then cut it off, as well as the excess fabric. I wasn't too happy with it, but I continued on. I then placed the leather on the cutting mat and about 1/4 of an inch strips, and I believe I cut maybe 5 strips. And then so as to find the middle of each piece, I folded it in half, and then I just glued them from the bottom of the pumpkin, and that's just to cover the cord. And when all the pieces met at the top, I glued them in place. Then took another piece and wrapped that around them a few times and then glued that down. And I then cut off the excess pieces at the top. Added pieces of boxwood greenery, made a small leather bow and glued that on as well, and finally complete. This is beautiful as it is. I am not doing much with this. So I removed the tag, and all I'll be doing is just embellishing this little sign. I used the sanding block and just sanded off a little piece that was hanging over. And the top decorative piece that was placed on top of the MDF board was not put down evenly, so it left a little piece of the MDF board exposed. So I took the utility knife and just cut that off. I'm replacing that jute cord that was there with this string of wooden beads, and I strung it from the back to the front. The ribbon was very thick, so I had to make my bow like this. I cut a piece, glue down both ends, scrunch it up in the middle, and tie it with a piece of jute cord. And then made the tails separately. Cut another piece, cut that in two again, made two little pleats to scrunch the middle, and then dovetail the ends, glue them down separately, and then glue the bow on top of that. I made another bow and just glued that down in the middle. And this one is done. So I was rummaging around in my stash and found this grapevine wreath, and here I'm just showing you these picks that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I'll be making a wreath. And as I was going around, just putting each stem in strategic places. And to keep some of the stems in place, I use some zip ties to secure them. And I know it doesn't look pretty right now, but you will see it in the end. I love how it turned out. And once I arranged them as much as I could, putting the leaves on the vine, I then added the pumpkin picks. And here I am using the heat gun to just press out the leaves because many of them were all crumpled. And this is how it all turned out. And then to hang it, I took a piece of jute cord and just tied that at the back. And to give a pop of color, I had some of these gold poinsettias. And this wreath is done. Let me know what you think, guys. I love it. And this one is very easy. So I'm just removing the glitter from the word. I was not going to do any removing of the paper. I just decided to scrape the glitter off the words. Next, to prevent the paint from getting on the surface, I took masking tape and I taped down the corners. And then I went in with the Oops paint and I gave that just one good coat right around the border. And now that is all done, I'm now removing the tape. I decided to change the color of the word, so I took the black paint pen. And now that is all done, I decided also to paint the galvanized piece at the top, so I coated it with some Mod Podge, dried it, and then gave it 2 coats of what I had left of my mixed paint. And to glue that on, I used some Fix-It-All glue as well as some hot glue to glue that on. I took one piece of the jute that I took off and just burned off the fuzzes from that and then glued that back on. I took a maple leaf and trimmed that down and glued that right on top of where the jute ends. And then I just glued a jute bow right on top of that. And this one is done. Before we jump into our next DIY, enjoy this 10-second intermission. This is from Dollar Tree. Now I tried to find an entry for the scraper tool to remove or to lift the paper, but that wasn't easy. I eventually got a piece off from the top, and then that allowed me to spray it down, place some paper towel over it, and I set it aside to soak. While that was soaking, I took the pieces and I painted them with some of the mixed paint, and when that dried, I took a little white paint and a dried chippy brush, and I am just distressing this, both the top piece as well as the bottom piece. And if you don't like distressing, by all means, you can apply another coat of your paint and Mod Podge, and that will give you a little sheen and a crisp look. And now the piece is ready. I removed the paper, just sanded it down and wiped it off with a dry paper towel. And then I'm going in with some white paint, gave it one good coat, and then when that dried, I got this window cling from Dollar Tree and I'm selecting this Welcome Autumn. Cut that out. And to get the cling on top of the surface, I use some Mod Podge. You can use school glue. And then I placed that down in the middle, making sure it was centered. and then just use my finger to smooth that out. And then I used some wood glue as well as some hot glue to glue on the top. But before I did that, I applied some Mod Podge, because you know where the openings are, that part will be showing, so you want that to look finished. If you're still here and enjoying the video, thank you so much for sticking around. Go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And after I glued on both the top and the bottom, I then applied some Mod Podge to the rest of it. And to embellish the hanger, I took some teal, red candy apple, and some of the mixed paint and painted 6 small wooden beads and added those to the jute. I lifted the staple that was there, removed the jute, added the beads, replaced the jute, glued it down, and then refastened the staple. And that's it for this one, guys. Let me know what you think. Oh, I then added a small bow made from ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and there you have it. This one is also going to be very easy. I got this fabric from the Dollar Tree and I love the patterns on here. I'll be making a lumbar pillow. Folded it on the wrong side, lined up the edges, and then took my pen and gave it a 1/4 inch mark. Took it to my sewing machine and sewed that down. And now I'm just turning that over, forcing out the points with my finger. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can use fabric glue. And then I took some polyfill, and now I'm stuffing the pillow. And again, using my finger to just force the polyfill into those corners and evenly spreading it inside. You don't want some parts to be lumpy and other parts to be flat. For the purpose of the video, I'll be using hot glue to close the seam. So I folded in the 1/2 inch space or seam, and I placed the hot glue right at the very edge, because that is where the seam would meet. And that's it, guys, for this pillow. Let me know what you think. Here we have our lumbar pillow and our fall wreath. And this beautiful door hanger. Each of these projects, guys, cost me under $5. Now, these are just inspiration for you to see how you can make beautiful decor pieces for budget-friendly prices. So I'm using canvases that I picked up from Dollar Tree, and I will be making 2 in this one project, and this is 8 by 10. And I mixed my paints. I'm using these 2 to give me that color, and these 2 to give me that color, and that to give me that. Now, I didn't realize I wasn't filming when I started, but what I did, I took the pencil and just drew out the design, and then I'm using the larger, I'm painting the larger section with the 2 paints that I mixed, which was the yellow and the brown. And I gave this 2 good coats, and you have to stroke your brush in the same direction. And then here I'm just going in with the teal. I believe this is teal. And I do like to paint, guys. I don't do it often, but I do like to paint, and I found this to be very therapeutic. And I'm working on 2 canvases at the same time, kind of mirroring the image onto the next, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And then for the last panel, I used the orange and the brown that I mixed together. So I was all done, and here I'm showing you the other one that I did. And then I took a pumpkin and traced that out, and then kind of just figured where I needed to put my pegs. And then what was left of the paint, I am now going to paint the pumpkin. And for the middle, what I did, I mixed a little of elephant gray with the teal that was left, just so it doesn't look like the teal that's below there. And when that dried, I took this puffy paint that I got from Walmart, and I'm filling in the space between each sections. And then I dry that. You have to let this dry properly because you don't want to smudge your paint. And then when you're done, of course, you need to sign your project because it's your artwork, right? So that's what I did. Now to give the top of the pumpkin further embellishment, I took some raffia, and because it was very stiff, I'm kind of softening it a little. You can soak this, and I'm making a little tailless bow. And I did the same thing for both. Wrap the jute around the middle and then I glued them on. So I'm taking this wood acorn from Dollar Tree, and this paint is Oops paint from Lowe's. It's the same color as the board, so I only gave it one coat. And then I took the pencil and I just traced out the top of the acorn and stained that with the Waverly Antique Wax. I brushed it on and then used the baby wipe to just wipe that off. This is from the Dollar Tree. So for the other side, so I'm just using the heat press to press out the folds, and then I took a paintbrush and I'm doing the water technique to tear that, and that's just to give me jagged edges. I am removing the back layer. You want to make sure you do that. And then here I'm using the Mod Podge. And then I place the napkin over it. Just use a brush to smooth it out before I apply the parchment paper and the heat press. Isn't this napkin beautiful? I love it. Now when I was done, I'm now going over with another layer of the Mod Podge. Use the heat gun to seal it. Now I got this rope from Temu, and I'm using that to separate the top part of my acorn just for embellishment. This is not necessary if you don't have rope. Right across. Now this mesh ribbon is from Dollar Tree. I thought this side needed some embellishment. I'll be using these plastic eggs that I had in my stash from Easter last year to make acorn. So because this is shiny, you have to apply some Mod Podge to tone down the sheen so you can apply your paint. Now the next thing I did, I put a piece of tape at the bottom of the egg so it can stand, and I gave it 3 coats of Waverly celery, allowing each coat to dry properly. So now we're all done with them. I made these, and I actually did about 6 of them, but I'm only going to be showing you how I did one. So now I'm ready to add the jute, but before I did that, I picked up this piece of stem from outside, and I'm just trimming that down because that's going to be the stems. So I'm taking the hot glue and I'm using that to pierce a hole in the bottom of the egg. Then once I put that in, glue that in, I'm now wrapping the jute around here, and you're gluing as you go along and wrapping it as close as possible, because you notice this part I did not paint. Didn't make sense to paint it if I'm going to be applying the jute on it. You want to wrap it close so it's not showing when you're done. And when I was done, these two, I'm showing you how I made them, and then after that I just took the lighter and burn off the fuzzies, and you will see more of those in the final reveal. See, this is where I'm starting with this one because I lost the footage. Well, the footage got corrupted. But what I used for this is one of Dollar Tree's wooden heart that I had in my stash from Valentine's, and one of their calendar pages, and this one says Fall in Love. So I painted the heart with white chalk paint, and then I applied Mod Podge and then put the sheet on top of that. And here now, where I'm starting from, I'm making a bow with this burlap trim from Dollar Tree. Glue that on there, and I'm now using some boxwood pick to just further embellish that. And then I thought it needed something else, so I used a piece of the trim on each side, cut that in two evenly, and then glued it down. Now this one, guys, but I'm taking this burlap bag. So I decided to use the napkin. So I cut it out as close as possible to the print. And then I removed the ply, but I did not throw that out because I'm going to be putting that on the inside. And then I flip the bag on the outside or the wrong side. And I'm carefully just trying to think, okay, if this is going to be on the inside, then it needs to be reversed. So I did that. Measured it how I needed to fit. The pumpkin in the middle needs to be upright, and that's why you see me trying to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And then once I knew that I will have it upright, I took the pencil and just marked it where I need to put the napkin back down, and then flipped it around. Use a piece of masking tape to just tape that down. And then on the right side, I put a piece of parchment paper so the glue doesn't stick to the next side. Here I am applying the Mod Podge to the fabric and a little to the napkin. And then I'm using heat press and the parchment paper to secure that. Now I turn the bag back on the right side, and I'm going to be applying the top part of the napkin on top of this. So sandwiching the fabric in between the 2 layers of napkin. Putting the parchment paper inside, and that is for support. as a barrier between the two sides of the fabric, and then applied Mod Podge to both the napkin and the fabric, making sure that I'm lining up the top piece with the piece underneath. And then once I got that on, I used the parchment paper and the heat press. And now I'm just going over it with a little of the Mod Podge to seal everything in. And even when I fold it, like you see, it's stayed in place. And I'm now taking another sheet of that same napkin I just used. So I folded that in two because I'm going to be cutting that apart. I took my pencil and I measured evenly the distance that I wanted to tape off. Took a piece of masking tape and placed that on top of the line that I just drew. A dried chippy brush and Waverly celery chalk paint, and I'm just dry brushing some of the paint on here. If you love budget-friendly DIYs like these and you have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing and be sure to hit that notification bell. Hit it again and select all so YouTube notifies you whenever I upload new videos. I got the napkin on, I used the parchment paper and the heat gun to just reactivate that, and then I'm now taking the emery board and filing off the excess. So I took a gold ribbon and made a bow. I had a bead, cut that in half, painted it some gold paint and glued that over the center and wrote "Hello Fall" with the black paint pen, and this is done. This is a Dollar Tree pumpkin, and I removed the tag and removed the raffia ribbon and sanded it down, and I'm going to be working on both sides. I painted the pegs, I'm going to call them pegs. I painted the pegs with some of the pumpkin orange. Now after that dried, I decided to stain the inner parts with some Waverly Antique wax, and here I am just brushing it on, and then after I brushed it on, I then took a baby wipe and wiped it off. So now I flipped it over and I painted the back side or the other side with some white chalk paint. And this welcome fall sign that with the same orange. And then after everything dried, I Mod Podged the words and the surface. So after the letters dried, I thought that I needed to add some more pizzazz to it. So I went over it, the edges, with my white marker from Dollar Tree. Then of course, I didn't want to just have a plain old white pumpkin. So I took this latte mocha, I believe that's what it's called, from Apple Barrel, and my dried chippy brush. And I just went across diagonally to give some dry brush strokes, and I think this made it look fabulous. I love it. And flipped it over, and this is where I said I changed the color of this stain because I didn't like how it looked, and I just applied some of the same mocha paint and covered that, and I think it came out looking great. Let me know what you think. I then added back the string for hanging, and then wrap the jute around the stem. Now this side was a little too plain, and I was thinking, what do I need to put here that wouldn't make it so fussy or too crowded? And I found the word Simply Blessed, and that is it. I just rubbed that on and it came out perfect. Now this little messy bow was already used. Of course, it's perfect. And then the raffia that I had taken from the pumpkin, I just added it back to this side, and this dual purpose reversible sign is done. Now for the final reveal. So guys, let me know which of these you prefer today. Be sure to leave me a comment in the description box below, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you have not yet done so. And if you love budget-friendly content like this one, I suggest this video right here or this playlist. And stay safe guys until my next one. Bye.